Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
I was standing in line at SeaTac Airport, waiting for my overpriced latte, when I got the message that shattered 18 years of my life in less than 10 seconds. I've met someone who truly loves me. I'm leaving. I hope you'll understand. That was it. No name, no confrontation, not even a damn emoji. Just silence after a digital bullet. I stared at the screen, expecting a second message, something that would clarify this cruel joke. Maybe she'd followed up with, "Haha, wrong person," or, "Just kidding, let's order Thai tonight." But nothing came. Just those 4 sentences, perfectly punctuated, like she'd been rehearsing them in her head for weeks. Her name is Elliot. Yeah, I know. It's not the name you expect from the woman you marry at 28. But that was her. Unexpected, sharp around the edges, ambitious in a way that used to make me proud and eventually made me tired. We met at a weird art gallery in Asheville when I was consulting for a tech startup. She wore combat boots to a wine tasting. I proposed 6 months later. 18 years. Gone. With a fucking text. I didn't move. People behind me were sighing, shifting, getting annoyed that I wasn't advancing the line. But I couldn't feel my legs. I could only hear my pulse, thick, pounding, loud. I wasn't angry yet. That came later. What I felt then was something purer, colder. Relief. I know how that sounds. Like I'm pretending I didn't love her. But I did. God, I loved her for years beyond what made sense. I loved her past the nights she worked late, and the weekends she suddenly needed space. I loved her even after I started noticing that every conversation between us felt like a negotiation with someone who already had one foot out the door. The money? She drained the joint accounts. Moved it into a personal account I didn't even know existed. But see, I knew something like this might happen. Not this exactly. This level of cowardice surprised even me. But the betrayal? No. That had been on its way for years. 3 years ago, I started preparing. I moved my shares in the company into a trust under my brother's name. Quietly sold off assets she didn't even realize we had. Got a separate lawyer. One I didn't share with her yoga friends and their spiritual prenup retreats. People say paranoia destroys relationships. In my case, it saved me. I never confronted her. Never asked where she was going when she came home smelling like sandalwood and men's cologne. I didn't need to know. I just needed time. Time to make sure when she finally left, she wouldn't take me with her. So, standing there in SeaTac, phone still in my hand, latte long forgotten, I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I just replied, "I wish you well. Please don't contact me again." Then I blocked her. No closure. No explanation. Just like she wanted. I boarded my flight to Austin, met my client, and signed a deal that would triple my income over the next 18 months. The flight attendant asked if I wanted champagne. I said yes. 2 weeks after Elliot left, I got a call from my private banker at Hawthorne and King. He asked if I'd authorized a transfer request from a personal account ending in 03, one I didn't recognize. I hadn't. But I didn't need to ask who had. "Decline the transfer," I said calmly, staring at the quiet Pacific outside my rented bungalow in Big Sur. "And lock the account. I'll sign whatever you need today." You'd think she'd be more clever. That she'd wait a while, disappear into someone else's life, let the dust settle. But no. Elliot always assumed she was the smartest person in the room, and for years I let her think that. She had no idea how long I'd been 10 moves ahead. See, Elliot loved power, but not the responsibility of it. She liked the image of wealth, nice bags, design retreats, name-dropping architects she'd never met. But she never bothered understanding how it all worked. She never asked how I managed to keep our lifestyle comfortable even when my firm went through a brutal contraction 3 years ago. That's when I started putting pieces in motion. I created a shell company in Nevada, Silver Lantern Holdings. Totally legal, just cleanly separate from anything we owned together. I funneled key consulting contracts through it. Quietly shifted our biggest real estate asset, a commercial property in Denver, into the company name. Paid off the mortgage in cash. She didn't even notice the title had changed. She thought we still owned that building together. That's the thing about people like Elliot. They leave because they believe they're holding all the cards. They never check the deck. I never told anyone, not even my brother Jude, the full scope of what I was doing. Not because I didn't trust him, but because when you move in silence, no one can warn the enemy. It was never about revenge. It was about prevention. You don't know what someone is capable of until they believe they've beaten you. And Elliot believed she'd won. She moved out while I was away, took what she could physically carry, including some artwork she always hated but knew had value. She left my favorite leather jacket though. Funny how people miss the things with real meaning. A week after the failed transfer, her lawyer emailed me. Short message, passive-aggressive tone. My client is seeking her rightful share of jointly accumulated assets. I didn't respond. My lawyer, Alexandra, ruthless, brilliant, and with a distaste for emotional mess, handled it. Sent back a file detailing every legal separation I had made over the past 3 years, timestamped and ironclad. The reply we got? Silence. But silence isn't the end. Not with someone like Elliot. That was only the moment she realized I hadn't just let her go. I'd let her walk into her own ruin. And now? She was stuck with a man she thought could rescue her from the prison of our marriage, only to find out she was the one without a map. Me? I was just getting started. It was a Friday morning in March, cloudy, with the kind of low San Francisco fog that clings to your thoughts. I was pouring coffee in my Nob Hill apartment when I heard a knock at the door. Not a buzz. A knock. Only a few people in my life still knock. When I opened the door, Jude was standing there. My brother. Army vet. Mechanic by choice, philosopher by accident. He was holding a box of pastries and wearing that same canvas jacket he'd had since college. Tell me this isn't about her, he said before I could even say hello. I stepped aside. Come in. We didn't talk about Elliot much. Jude never liked her. Said she had the eyes of a politician and the heart of a stockbroker. He wasn't wrong. But even he wasn't ready for what he'd found. He dropped his phone on the kitchen counter, screen already lit. Photos. Screenshots. Messages. All from one of Elliot's closest friends, a woman named Talia, an old yoga buddy, someone I always thought was more grifter than guru. She'd sent Jude a flurry of texts the night before, including a picture of Elliot, crying on the steps of a rundown motel in Mill Valley. She's been staying there, Jude said, almost casually, with her true love. Guy's name is Bram Roston. Owns a tattoo shop and 3 DUIs. I stared at the photo. I barely recognized her. She looked smaller. Not physically, but spiritually. The sharpness in her eyes had dulled into something hollow. She tell him about the prenup? I asked. There was no prenup, Jude said. You remember? I smiled. Exactly. See, I had never signed one because I didn't need to. California is a community property state, but what most people don't realize is, timing and intent matter. And I had documented, dated, and protected every key acquisition before she could even sniff at it. My assets weren't marital. They were strategic. Elliot, on the other hand, had nothing. She never developed her design firm. Lived off the lifestyle. Bragged about not needing to work because she built a king. Turns out, when you kill the king, you better have your own damn kingdom ready. She didn't. Later that evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I never answer those, but something told me to pick it up. Cass? The voice was low, tired, slurred. It was her. She didn't cry. Elliot doesn't cry. Instead, she sighed, like the weight of pretending had finally crushed her lungs. I just wanted to hear your voice, she said. I know I'm the last person you want to talk to. You're not wrong, I replied. There was a long pause. I could hear cars outside wherever she was. I made a mistake, she whispered. It wasn't an apology. It was a statement. Cold. Distant. Like she was reading it off the back of a pamphlet titled, How to Lose Gracefully. I know, I said. I'm just surprised it took you this long to realize it. Can we talk? Maybe meet. No, I said before she could finish. We already did our talking. You just didn't realize you were having the last conversation. I hung up. No drama. No screaming. No insults. Just the sound of a door closing. For good. But as I stood there in the kitchen, staring out over the city I'd reclaimed for myself, I knew something she didn't. This wasn't just about her. Someone else had helped her try to take me down. And I was going to find out who. You never think it's going to be the ones you trust. Business associates? Sure. Clients? Of course. But the ones who've sat at your dinner table, whose kids you've held in your arms, who toast to your success while memorizing your downfall. That's a different kind of betrayal. It cuts from the inside. The clue came from an unexpected place. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was reviewing some old emails tied to the sale of our Oregon property, an off-grid cabin I bought before Elliot and I even met. She loved telling friends it was our escape plan, if the world ever burned. Truth is, she never stepped foot in the place after 2017. As I scanned through the digital paperwork, I noticed something strange. A CC line. A familiar email address. Seth.Breyer@archcorrectconsulting.com. Seth Breyer. My former business partner. Godfather to our son. The kind of man who wore soft smiles and expensive denim. I had trusted him with deals, contracts, and, apparently, access to things he should have never seen. I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly. Not in shock, but in confirmation. Something I had felt months ago but hadn't dared let surface. He was always around at just the right moments. Friendly drinks after Elliot and I fought. Offering to talk to her, like some wise intermediary. Reassuring me that she was just in a weird place, emotionally. Turns out, that place was his bed. I didn't confront him. That's not how I operate. Instead, I called in a favor. A contact of mine, Braden, an investigator who works clean but cuts through digital footprints like a surgeon, owed me. I sent him Seth's email, a list of bank activity around that property sale, and one simple message. I want to know how deep this goes. 2 days later, I had the answer. Seth had set up a consultancy. On paper it looked clean, legitimate. But through it, he'd been quietly channeling funds to Elliot for 6 months before she left. Small transfers. Odd payments disguised as creative contracts. Fake invoices. He was paying her to build an exit while I was funding the machine. I looked through the transactions. Dates lined up. Weekend trips she told me were retreats. Spa days I paid for, thinking she needed space. She was spending my money to cheat on me with someone who pretended to be my brother. The fury didn't come in an explosion. It came in layers. Not just for what they did, but how calculated it was. How easy it was for them to assume I'd never know. That I was blind. And the irony? The moment she left me, he stopped answering her calls. Braden found texts. Dozens of them. Desperate. Unanswered. She jumped thinking he'd catch her. He never even looked up. Now she had nothing. And he had everything to lose. Because I wasn't done. Not yet. This wasn't about revenge. It was about cleaning the rot. And Seth? He was about to find out that betrayal comes with compound interest. I didn't call Seth. I invited him to lunch. A quiet place in Sausalito. Del Mir. An upscale seafood spot with glass walls and white linen where no one raises their voice, even when their world ends. He showed up wearing his usual disguise, polished, confident, disarming. He smiled like he was still my best friend. like nothing had happened. I returned the smile. Because today, I wasn't his enemy. I was his reckoning. Cass, he said, reaching for the menu. You look great, man. Austin treating you well? Better than I expected, I replied, taking a sip of sparkling water. How's Elliot? That landed. I saw it. A blink too long. His smile flickered, just for a breath. Honestly, he said, setting the menu down, I haven't spoken to her in weeks. That whole thing, she kinda spiraled. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low. You think I didn't know? Seth froze. I know about the transfers. The shell contracts. The fake invoices. I know everything. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. Still tried to play calm. Cass, don't, I said, raising a hand. I'm not here for an apology. I'm not here for closure. I'm here to let you know that your name has been submitted to the California Department of Business Oversight. Now the color drained from his face. I've sent them every document. Every paper trail. You think I didn't backtrace the IPs? You think I didn't archive every file before I let Braden feed them into the system? I gave them dates. Names. Corporate ties. Enough to bury your consultancy 6 feet under the Board of Ethics. He stared at me like I had just taken away his air. You can't prove. I don't have to, I said calmly. You handed it to me. You signed Elliot's fake contracts. You listed your firm as a vendor. You used my property transaction to float your payments. That's wire fraud. That's tax evasion. That's conspiracy. He looked around the restaurant like someone might help him. They wouldn't. This was my domain. Every square inch. I'm not going to ruin you, I said, standing. You're going to do that yourself. Because starting next week, your clients will get a letter from an anonymous compliance reviewer. It'll ask if they're aware of your, let's call them accounting irregularities. Some won't care. Some will. I leaned down, close enough for him to smell the steel in my words. But all of them will wonder why you were funneling money to another man's wife. I straightened my jacket. Enjoy the oysters. They're fresh today. Then I walked out. No yelling. No threats. Just facts. Paper. Process. Like the quiet pressure of a vice around a man's legacy. Seth never responded. He never tried to call. But a week later, his top client pulled out of a major contract. 2 weeks after that, the Archcore website went dark. Then the rumors started. Turns out, you don't have to destroy a man's house to bring it down. You just pull out the right nail. It was a warm, dry Sunday in May when she called again. Unknown number. This time I answered. Cashin. Her voice cracked like old wood. Weak. Thin. But I knew it immediately. Once, it was the sound that made me feel at home. Now, it was just noise from a story I had finished reading. Hi, Elliot, I said evenly. No anger. No emotion. Just calm. She hesitated. Then, I didn't know who else to call. I didn't respond. I'm in trouble, she whispered. There it was. The moment I'd always suspected would come, not because I wanted it to, but because I understood the math of people like her. Pride runs until it runs out of options. Bram's gone, she continued. He cleaned out my account. I have nowhere to stay. Seth, he blocked me. I've been sleeping in my car for 3 nights. Silence on my end. I thought maybe we could talk, she said. Not about getting back together. Just talk. I waited a beat. Then asked, Are you calling because you miss me, or because you miss the life I gave you? More silence. That silence told me everything. I see, I said softly. Well, I'm sorry things didn't work out for you, Elliot. But this isn't my problem anymore. I made a mistake. She choked. No, I cut in. You made a series of decisions. Calculated ones. Selfish ones. And now you want me to save you from their consequences. Her voice turned desperate. I loved you, Cashin. I was just confused. I thought you didn't care. I thought I did care, I said. That was the problem. I cared while you lied. While you planned. While you cashed checks and kissed another man. I breathed in deeply, let the final words roll out with precision. But I'm not that man anymore. The one who'd drop everything to fix what someone else broke. That Cashin is gone. Then I hung up. No second chance. No hero ending. Just closure. Real, cold, adult closure. I stared out across the hills of Napa from my terrace. My new home, a minimalist estate I bought under my trust 6 months ago. Vineyard in the back, peace in the front. My dog, Archer, slept at my feet. Jazz played low from the speakers. And I poured myself a glass of Amarone, something Elliot never liked, but I always did. Funny how quiet the world becomes when you stop clinging to the people who make it loud. Elliot never called again. Seth's firm? Officially dissolved. Bram? Arrested 2 months later in Reno on fraud charges. Me? I signed a book deal last week. The Art of Letting Go with Dignity. Funny. People think I'm writing about healing. I'm not. I'm writing about strategy. Because some people burn the bridge. I rebuild it behind them. Then I let them watch as I walk across it. Without ever looking back. Cashin Wolf.